I'm sure you've heard this, like we're not afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of what our brains put in the unknown. And that's where you can start to tell deep within yourself what you really believe to be true. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the podcast. This is a big episode. It is episode 799. I'm almost to 800, and we are doing something special for episode 800. We have been posting a little thing to Instagram for you to submit questions, but we're going to do a listener questions based episode. So in case you see that on Instagram, you can send in your questions and maybe those will get answered to celebrate 800. But I have some other shifts that I'm going to be making to the show, and I wanted to announce those today because we're going to be moving forward a little bit differently. But don't worry, everything that you love will still be available to you. I mentioned this in the Next Level You call last month, and everybody freaked out because they thought I was saying I was canceling the show. I am not canceling the show. It's like my baby, so definitely not planning on canceling it. But I have been doing a lot going into 2026 to organize, to restructure, to clean things up. And I know the way that my energy works is I need to have those proper containers set up that are aligned so I can just drop in and flow. And I know my creativity doesn't flow. I feel like my energy just does not function properly if the container I've set up isn't aligned for me. And so a lot of what we were doing early this year and going into 2026 was getting really, really clear on the direction that I want to take the business. And I've been doing a lot to really upgrade my leadership skills and work on that. That's something really important for me that I want to continue to develop this year. I mean, I always am, but I think I'm just being a lot more concentrated with it. And there were different things I had kind of outsourced before, and I'm just switching up a lot, and I'm feeling really, really good about it. I'm feeling a lot more fortified. So it's been really beautiful to step into that part of my divine masculine and develop new skill sets within that range of my energy. And we had a team retreat the first weekend of the year, which was really fun and really helpful and just got us all on the same page. And I just kind of saw how everything fell into place when we really started to organize the workflow of the business. And this is something that comes up with every entrepreneur I work with. Like when you're a solopreneur or have a smaller business like me, a lot of the people who I help with their business, obviously it's more something along the lines of what I do when it's more practical, and I'm helping them with that. But like, I think a lot of times people who are more spiritual or energetic, they don't always realize how much the practical and logistic side of things is such an important spiritual activation. And it's such a big way that we allow our channel to flow and our creativity to flow. And what I know is a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs struggle because they want to just be in pure flow state. They don't want any structure, but I see how that limits their ability to be creative and their ability to expand. So I just can't emphasize that enough, and I can speak more to that if you want, because I think there's a lot underneath that. But it was a really important time for me going into this year to just get really crystal clear on organization. And I found myself kind of noticing where there's just a lot of decisions I didn't want to make because I had decision fatigue, and I realized that I was keeping myself in a lot of decision fatigue just because I wasn't creating a structure. And that's the power of a structure. It eliminates the need to make decisions all the time. And that was a lot of why I was so tired. And so I went into this year really getting clear on, okay, what can I set up so I don't have to keep making extra decisions? I just show up and I know what I'm doing. And having that extra time to plan has meant the world of a difference. And I realized just a different level of support I needed. And so we reorganized a lot of things with my team, which was really helpful. I hired some outside, consulting support to help me, which has been amazing. And I'm just feeling like really supported and really taken care of. And I think having that container allowed me to see a lot of things in other areas of my life and where there was resistance and where there wasn't flow. And so it's interesting because, like, as I record this, it's mid-January, and this week I was moving through a lot of emotion, and I'm like, I feel like my 2026 isn't going to start until February. Like, I don't even feel like I fully moved through that portal yet. I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Let me know if you do, because I'm still kind of structuring and organizing, and there's a lot of stuff I let go of and a lot of big changes I made in the first few weeks of January, and that's kind of just taken all of my time and mental space, and just the releasing, the phase of releasing, the grief, the actual logistics, all of that has been where my energy has been put towards. So I haven't really even gone into the forward part of the new year yet. I definitely felt a palpable energy shift January 1st, which I know a lot of people did. It was so potent. And I think I was hoping it would just be full steam ahead. But what ended up unfolding was a lot of releasing, because there was a lot more clarity, and then a lot of restructuring. And so I feel like this month for me is just a lot of restructuring. So to explain the things that I'm changing with the podcast, I was just trying to clarify for myself some of those buckets and how I want to move forward. And, you know, we've taken different approaches with the show and kind of how we produce it, how we bring it forward, XYZ. And one of the things that I am really aware of for myself is I have a lot of personality. I have a lot of personalities. I have a lot of, like, kind of different voices that I like to drop into. And yeah, not everybody is like that. And, you know, it's a blessing and a curse a little bit. But one of those things I realized is if I don't have space for all of me to feel expressed, and that doesn't all have to be through my career, but if I don't have clear containers for all of me to be expressed, I don't feel aligned. It's like I don't feel fully open. I don't feel fully free. And that feeling of freedom and liberation and flow and pure creativity is something that I have to have. And I'm like, I'm not gonna, like, negotiate with that anymore. I'm not gonna abandon myself in those ways anymore. And I realized little ways I was abandoning myself because I wasn't allowing myself to really be in my creativity and in my flow. And so much of what was actually blocking me from my flow was just not having that kind of proper container set up, so that when I feel a flow state coming in, when I feel something moving through me, I can just jump in and let it go. And so what I've decided to do with the podcast is kind of take it back to OG style, and I'm going to tell you kind of what to expect here from here on out. And you know, hopefully you're supportive in this. And if you're not, then thanks. But basically, I'm going to use the podcast as, like, more of a traditional podcast space, which is really where I'm going to share a lot more of my reflections, things I'm moving through, things I'm learning. Maybe it's things I'm seeing with clients or conversations that are coming up with friends. I'll still have some guest interviews here and there. You know, I only bring people on the show that, like, I personally just really want to chat with and who I think would add value or an interesting voice in the conversation. But I really just want to use the podcast as a space for Christina to share Christina stuff. And that also gives me room to talk about things like the business side of things, or, you know, wellness, my first true love, or just anything like lifestyle wise that I'm really enjoying. And my, just again, a lot of my own kind of growth and reflections from the lens of Christina. And I know a lot of people have actually asked me for more of that. People who don't already know me probably don't care about that, so that's fine. But, you know, I do love just having those heart to hearts with you guys, and that's what I want to use this space for moving forward, and just really just a yap space, like a space where I can just let it flow. And, you know, I know that in this community, like, you're here if you resonate with me, and we're reflections of each other, right? So all of you have similar things to me going on, right? Like, we have similarities, we have resonance, we're in this community because we have that vibrational connection. And so I always feel like it's really helpful to just hear from other people what's going on in their life, and whether that's more of a practical tip or a reflection I've had about myself that might help you with yourself, or it might help you with a friend or a client or something like that. So that is what I'm planning to use this space for moving forward. And in terms of scheduling, I like to be really clear about this because I do really value like the trust in this community. And a big part of this is like, because this is important because that's how we build a relationship. Like if I'm here and then I'm not here for 5 months, then I'm here, like, I mean, that's not a relationship, right? So I do always want to be consistent for you guys. And I'm going to be moving the podcast to once a week. So we'll have a new episode every Tuesday. And then there might be other podcasts if I feel inspired that I drop in here. So there sometimes might be more than one episode, but just to be really clear, like you'll always have a Tuesday episode, and it will be Christina being Christina, sharing about Christina things. And I would love to hear what kind of things you want to hear on this side. If there are more practical topics about like things that I've overcome, or things that I have expertise in, or life experiences I've had, if it's personal, if it's professional, if it's energy, whatever, this is going to be my Christina space to share. And like I said, if I'm inspired, I'll plop in some other episodes as well. The other shift is going to be, in the last couple of years, the podcast has also been home to a lot of more like traditional spiritual education, and we've done energy readings, and we've done, channeling and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be moving all of that to YouTube. I've decided to kind of separate these platforms out just to streamline things so people know where things are. So to get all of that, all of the channeling and, spiritual education and lessons and live energy reads and all of that, that's all going to be on YouTube. So that way you have the visual component, but you can also just listen to it like an audio the same way you do on a podcast. So I'm just kind of clearly bucketing those for myself, so I know where to flow in each space and how to flow in each space. And I know some people are wanting a lot more like channeling, and they're wanting a lot more just like spiritual education, and others are wanting a lot more just like personal me yap, whether it's silly or serious or whatever. And so I'm just allowing for both and kind of creating a separate space for both. So if you're not already with me on YouTube, or you're not already subscribed on the podcast, and you know that you're interested in one of those or both of those types of content, that is where those different things are going to be going. So I'm not removing any types of content or styles of content. I'm just organizing it. And so, you still have your monthly energy updates that we all know and love. You'll get more energy updates. So it's just going to allow me to actually produce more because I'm more clarified and streamlined. So that is the shift that's going to be happening. And I just want to be really specific podcast wise. On the podcast app, you'll get an episode every Tuesday, and sometimes additional episodes if I feel inspired. And there's going to be content that's just unique to the podcast, and then YouTube's going to be home to everything else. So just so you know what's headed your way. So hopefully that all, makes sense, and I appreciate your support. And yeah, as we kind of jump into this, I'm just going to follow what feels inspired for me each week as I drop in. And I think about this like our weekly drop in, our weekly heart to heart. And I'll also, obviously, if you guys reach out, if you message me, if you're like, I would love for you to like just chat about this, I'm happy to do that. So please let me know. I do always love the suggestions. It helps me orient the content toward what's helpful for you, because I just want to serve the community in a helpful way, So that's the announcement. And when I just kind of sat with what have I been thinking about a lot recently, like in the last week, as I said, the last few weeks have been a lot of reorganization. The last few weeks have been actually a lot of releasing and like just being with my emotions. And the last few weeks have been a lot of me really stepping into this space of the unknown in a way that I'm really, really excited about. I feel like it's been a while since I have felt this very intense. I literally don't know what's happening next. Like I have intentions, I have desires, I have kind of, big picture visions, but I think I always know so much of what's right ahead. And I'm in a space where I'm like, I don't really want to know. Like, I just want to kind of let magic happen and synchronicity happen. And I actually love when I'm stepping into phases like this because whenever it's really unclear is like usually when it's just insane synchronicity and insane miracle after miracle. And I love to be surprised by the universe. I love to be delivered resources and messages and opportunities that I never would have thought of before. And I feel like I'm actually opening myself up to receive that because I'm moving a lot off of my mental space, and I'm just like kind of releasing everything that felt heavy. And I know there are a lot of releases like in 2025, and for me there were a lot. There are a lot of relationships I let go of, there are a lot of dynamics I let go of. I really simplified to the point where I felt a little like uncomfortable, of like a little lonely, to be honest, and a little confused. But there were more things that like I just had to shift heading into this year, and a lot of like big changes. And I realized how much I just want this time to pour into myself and to do all of the things that like I really selfishly want to do. And I think about, I really want to have kids in the next couple of years, and I'm like, when I have kids, I'm like, I'm not going to like they're going to come first. And I have this beautiful moment in my life where I still have less responsibilities than I will. And how do I want to use that time? And I think just like really milking that time. And I think that's a really important part of intentionality with your life. I think people often just move through life and then it passes them by. And I don't like to live my life that way. I like to be really intentional about like, yeah, I want to travel a lot now. Yeah, I want to go run around and do stuff in the city right now because like I can right now, and I know I'm not going to want to later. I know it's going to be just less flowy or less convenient later. So I'm really intentional with that. And I think right now I'm like, you know what? I want to be able to just stay up all night reading a book, and I want to be able to just work at odd hours because I feel like it, and I want to be able to just go away to, wherever for a week to sit in the mountains or sit in the desert just because I want to, because that might not always be available for me to do. And so I want to just do it now. And I think that's kind of the phase I'm starting 2026 with. And I'm really excited for that. I feel like there's been a lot of grief for me and things I've kind of cleared out, but now there's a lot of opening. And I recently, and I've been doing this a lot throughout the last year, but I'm a big believer in going back and like listening to old coaching sessions, therapy sessions, intuitive readings, and I have like every astrology reading, human design reading, different mentors I've had, coaching, therapy. Like I have all these things recorded, and I will usually just get a ping. My guides will just be like, hey, listen to this. And so throughout the last few months, I've been re-listening to a lot of old sessions I've had with different people. I mean, since, I don't know, at least 2020, if not before, like over the last, 6 or 7 years. And it's so interesting to witness an older version of yourself. And it's so interesting to see the similar themes that come up. I have definitely noticed similar themes, but it's the spiral of growth, right? You feel like you're in the same place, but you're at a different level, like same theme, different level of it. And so I'll notice like, wow, I'm up a ring on the spiral of growth, but it's the same thing. So what's in that for me? I'm also noticing in other places just like how much I've changed. And there are some places where there's stuff I was just really sitting with, 3 or 4 years ago that I'm like I was still really sitting with in the last few months. And a lot of those things I finally got clarity on. And one of the things I have really been sitting with myself has been this topic of power. And this is like an evolution. Happy to continue to share. I'll often have these topics that I sit with for a while, and life will deliver these lessons to me. I get parts of the lessons through conversations I have with people I meet, with friends that I grab coffee with a client here and there. I'm watching a movie and a line comes through. Life just delivers to me all of the messages I need and teaches me. And I have experiences that push me in certain directions. And I was really thinking about, my relationship with expressing my power and allowing that. And I think this is so core for a lot of people. I'm looking at themes like the unknown and like your relationship with your own inner power. And these are core themes that we all explore throughout our lives. And what's interesting is I was listening to a lot of different mentorship calls I had over the years, and the theme was like a lot of like you need to express your power. Like you need to allow your power to be expressed. And that seemed so like oversimplified at the time. Like I remember listening to people say that and being like, yeah, that's like a doctor being like stress less. And it's like, great, that's not helpful. That's not specific. Like, and I think a lot of times, especially when you're working with like intuitives or coaches, people will tell you things and it just sounds so fluffy, or it sounds so non-specific, or it sounds so big or whatever, that you just are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. And a big reason of why I wanted to go back and listen to some of these things where there are moments I remember feeling like resistance or frustration, and I listened back and I heard it from a very different lens. And it was like the message didn't land for me 3 years ago or 4 years ago or last year or even 3 months ago, but it landed today when I was actually ready to hear it. And that is one, the value of listening back again and again. Like people will come in for sessions with me and you record your session and people will tell me that, like, I've listened to this multiple times a year for the last 6 years and has given me like everything I need because it's timeless, And I think what people ironically don't understand about spiritual messages is a lot of it is for future you. Like, isn't that why you go to see a psychic? But people are so funny how they're expecting it all to land right there. And I'm like, it's not going to land right now. Like, this is going to be what you need to know throughout your life right here. So most messages are meeting future you, which is why you want to go back and revisit it. But the thing is, even the same kind of core message is going to land with you differently at different phases of your life. Like talking about embracing the unknown. I mean, I remember having that conversation with a mentor before I bought my first house. Like, what was that? 5 or 6 years ago. I remember having that conversation, way back when I decided to start my business. I remember having that conversation, the first time I decided to move in with a romantic partner. I remember having that, conversation when it came to, my health. Like, there are all kinds of times we're facing the unknown. And I think about, okay, I'm going to have that conversation when it comes to like, marriage and kids and, moves I'm going to make if I move cities, if I jump into a new aspect of my career, if I take a big business opportunity. Like, there have been actually a lot of big life changes that I've been getting intuitive messages about that I feel fully on board with. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. They're so big. It's like my reality would literally just 180, and I'm excited for that. And I'm like, that it's truly like, if I say yes to this, when I'm in that realm, that there's nothing in that realm that I'm familiar with. Like, that realm is pure unknown, like pure, I'm not familiar with it at all. And what's interesting about that is, I'm sure you've heard this, like, we're not afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of what our brains put in the unknown, right? Like, I don't even know who first said that, but it's the collective consciousness. So a ton of people. And that's where you can start to tell deep within yourself what you really believe to be true, right? Like, I don't have that much trouble with the unknown because I associate the unknown with like massive life upgrades and expansion and good stuff. But people who fill in that gap with something bad's going to happen aren't going to like the unknown because they're assuming something bad is going to happen. And that's why I think reflecting on the past and even just hearing the frequency of your voice in the past, like audio recordings are so powerful. Hearing yourself in the past, hearing your mindset, you can hear your wounds in what you're saying. You can hear your fears in what you're saying is so valuable because you can start to really look at which of those stories that I told myself, which of those fears is actually true. And what is just something that I created? Like, how did it actually pan out? I think there's so much value in reflecting and looking at our patterns and seeing ways that we've grown or seeing what actually happened versus what our brains plugged in, you know? And I know there's been a lot of times where I felt like I was in the stickiest position and I would never figure it out. And now I look back on it and I think, yeah, that wasn't that big a deal. Like, there are bigger fish to fry. Now it is, you know? But you know, one of the things I'm really thinking about as I am in this phase of like, honestly, a lot of grief and just allow myself to feel my emotions, and I'm just like releasing and making a lot of space is like, can I just float in this open space? And in this open space, how can I fully express my power, which is how can I allow all parts of me to come online and to be fully and wholly expressed? Because we all are powerful innately. You're just pure loving energy and it's potent, and vibrationally it's really just a matter of, can I allow that to be seen? Can I drop the walls? Can I let myself be witnessed? Can I see all of myself? Can I allow the purity of what wants to flow through me to come through versus adjusting it for what I think will make other people comfortable or what I think that they're going to want, you know? And one of the things I know I really have dealt with over the years has been little places where I abandon myself because I have adjusted myself for other people, and I wasn't anchored into what's most loving thing for me because I was like, well, I know I'm fine. Like, I know I'm grounded. I know I'm fine. So I was putting myself to the side and my own needs to the side to make other people comfortable. And it was really tied up for me in like, yeah, like I think not wanting to hurt people's feelings or, you know, wanting to help, but there's just so many unhealed things underneath that, you know. And over the last year, that's a lot of what I realized. Like, I feel like 2025, especially at the beginning, honestly, there was a lot of, whoa, I got to get rid of that pattern. And so I started to slowly see all of the places and relationships in my life that were still there, that were catalyzed because of that pattern. And as we move through this year, we're in this one energy, we're in this creative energy. I think that there's a real opportunity for us to get really honest about all of our desires, all of our wants, all of our needs, what it would really look like to not self-abandon and to really pour into ourselves and to fully express. And for me, that's just a lot of creativity. That's a lot of trusting that I know the answer to what do I want, and not allowing I don't know to be an answer, is that rewires you to know that you can trust yourself. So those are a lot of the things I'm sitting with. I'm curious if anybody else listening has also not fully hit the ground running this year, but been in continued release and continued clearing and emotional realizations. But I also know that's often how it goes. You know, it's really worth taking that extra time to get underneath the root of it. I was talking about this with the retreat I facilitated for my team. We had a team retreat, like I said, and there was like this main question we kind of wanted to answer And we spend the whole first, 2.5 days just like moving the energy underneath it, essentially, like having all these other conversations and dropping it from another angle to move the energy, so that by the time we're actually getting practical of like, how do we want to do this, it was very clear. And that's also very much what it's like, spiritually guiding people. People want to jump to the answer. And it's like, if we take 75% of the time just moving the energy, just feeling into things, just reorganizing the field and getting clarity in these other ways, feeling, then we only need 1 second to get the answer. And most people try to overthink for 75% of the time, and they wonder why they haven't changed anything. So that is the power of a self-reflective practice. And for me, I like to feel into and look at with my energy body, like, where am I blocked is giving me the reflection of where I'm ready to grow, right? So looking at like the power question, it's like really feeling into my field and looking at where is that not fully shining, because it makes it very obvious. And where it's not fully shining is telling me exactly about what area of my life I'm creating stuckness within myself and what I can do to shift it. If you're interested in this, like, this is the power of doing energy work on yourself. Like, you get these reflections. You get to see this within yourself clearly. A couple of resources. One, use the Activate Your Power energy work in Next Level You. It is amazing. And Reclaim Your Sovereignty. Like, if you're vibing with what I'm saying right now, use those 2 guided energy works, because they will turn you back on. They will click you back on to your memory of your power and your expression. You can go to christinathechannel.com/membership for a 7-day free trial of those. It's going to open things up. The other thing is, we have a Ahai enrollment open right now. If you are interested in learning how to work with energy for yourself, you don't have to want to send it to other people. You can learn that, but most people sign up for this just for level 1 to learn to work with energy for themselves and to be their own healer and to pull out these energy blocks, to activate these energies. It really gives you such a deeper level of visibility in yourself that other modalities just don't give for you, right? You see yourself at the deepest level, and you can see exactly where you get to activate, where you get to upgrade. It is such a powerful tool, and I only run this a few times a year. So if you're interested in that, the link for that will be in the description below as well. Enrollment is closing on the 25th for this cohort, but you can learn more about how it works and everything that's included. It's a really, really comprehensive 12-week program. You get live calls with me, and it is just filled with miracles. So you can check that out as well. So that will complete our 799th episode, and we're gonna roll into our new flow starting next week. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for supporting me. Thanks for being with me for this long, or if you're new, thanks for just joining. I love it, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I will chat with you again next time.